It's episode 483 of the Locked On Texas Rangers podcast. I'm here joined by Grant Schiller, talk all things Rangers prospects, the Astros losing the World Series, and all that good stuff and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On the Texas Rangers. I'm your host, Brice Paterik, joined today by the one, the only, the great OG Grant Schiller here via audio only because for some reason we are having technical difficulties, but he can still dispense his wisdom with his words. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. It's a good day. You know, y'all don't have to see me, which is good for y'all. And the Astros lost, so everybody's winning today.
Yeah, everybody important is winning today. And I want to thank you for making Locked On Rangers your first listen of the day. Also, if you haven't listened to it, go check out yesterday's episode. I interviewed Rangers prospect Zak Kent first. Well, I guess professional baseball, but you are a baseball player more so than myself, but not at the professional variety.
Not yet.
Not yet. I mean, we're working towards it. Rangers. JD, I know you're listening to this podcast like you listen to every single podcast of mine because you're a huge fan. But you know, Grant would be a great addition to. I don't know. What do you think you'd start at about high A?
I think I'd be ready for AAA. You know, the gap between AAA and the bigs is bigger than it's ever been. So you got to think that I could handle the lower level.
Absolutely. I mean, you are one of a kind. And I know this is a Rangers podcast and a lot of other things have happened, but I kind of want to start today with the biggest news that literally just broke before recording this. Buster Posey is going to announce his retirement. This will probably happen today as you're listening to this, or maybe it already happened last night after we recorded this. But Buster Posey is going to retire. It is absolutely mind-blowing. One of the greatest catchers of this generation. Beat the Rangers in a World Series, but I didn't hate him for it. He's only 34 years old, but I don't. This is an absolute shock to me, especially after the season that he had.
Yeah, I mean, it's super sad. He just put up a 5-win season. So he sat out in 2020 with COVID. The year before that, 2019, he wasn't the same guy. He was still very good defensively, but his last line was 257, 320, 368. So it really had been a while since we'd seen him at the top of his game. He comes back, he has this great year, and then he's just gone already. So it really just stinks. It makes me very sad.
Yeah, and the wild thing, you said 5-win season?
Yeah. At age 34 as a catcher.
113 games he did that in. 130, not even 160, 140, whatever games. 113 games he had a 5-WAR season. That's absolutely insane. He is... You know, I mean, we know how great he is, but reading off his accomplishments, he's an MVP, he's Rookie of the Year, 7-time All-Star, won 3 World Series, a batting title, somehow only 1 Gold Glove because Yadier Molina being in your same league it was just bad timing on him, and a 4-time Silver Slugger. This guy is one of the best catchers in baseball history. A career batting average of 302, only 158 home runs. That feels like a little low.
Well, he only played for 12 years. And he never, I don't think, ever hit for 25 homers in a year. So it kind of compiled.
Right. 24 was his career high. So that makes sense. He had 18 this year. He only had 2 20-homer seasons, actually. One was the only year in however many years, actually. Well, let's see. From 2012 to 2018, he was an All-Star every year but 2014. He had an 854 OPS that year, and 22 home runs, the second most he ever had in his career. And he wasn't an All-Star that year. I don't know what people were thinking, or there's some random catcher that had a really great season. But what are you doing ever in his peak, not making him an All-Star? That's just stupid. I mean, 2019 made sense. He had a bad year, and that was a bummer. And it looked like he was kind of on the downswing. And well, actually, one of the guys that helped turn around is now going to be on the Rangers, the new bench coach / offensive coordinator, which is exciting and a little weird that it's offensive coordinator is his title. And you think, I always think baseball or football, not baseball, when I think of the title of offensive coordinator and Donnie Ecker. And he talked a little bit. I read a little bit about what he was doing, and he was not doing as much coach pitch and using machines that throw game ready pitches. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, do you think he's going to make as much of an impact as the Rangers? I mean, obviously, the Giants' offense was kind of the toilet even just like 2 years ago before he really made his impact. Do you think he could get the Rangers anywhere near that level of offense, or I don't know?
Well, I don't know if they have as much talent, but I think it's an interesting hire. I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of people poached from that Giants organization this offseason, just given what they did with what they had. I do love the batting practice thing. I hope that the Rangers adopt it. It honestly seems like a no-brainer to me. You have these machines now where you can, at least to an extent, simulate what you're going to see in the game that night. So maybe instead of having it be first time, second time, third time through where you really get to get a feel for a guy, you can get at least a little bit of that feel pregame maybe. It's not the same, but it can simulate a little bit. So I love that they do that. I hope the Rangers adopt it. And I'm not going to turn down bringing somebody in from the Giants right now. Hopefully they got the right guy. It does make me sad that I would assume he's just going to take Alec Berg's job, right? He was the offensive coordinator last year.
I think so.
So that part makes me a little bit sad.
Yeah, Berg is I think they came to it was a mutual parting of ways, and Berg is going to go seek opportunities somewhere else. And I talked about it a little bit earlier this week, but and it's not that those guys were doing a bad job, like the hitting instructor. I think they were pretty good at their job, but at a certain point, obviously, like the talent level. I mean, there are some guys that have the ability to be talented hitters, and the thing that he did that did so much improvement on hitting fastballs. Man, if you can get a hold of Nathaniel Lowe and help him hit fastballs significantly better, that might make me not hate that trade. I mean, it'd probably take a lot still, but I don't know. He's definitely got something in there, and he showed that this year. Not as much as I would have liked, and but I don't know. He's definitely gonna bring some value, and I'm kind of bummed that Don Wakamatsu is gone, but guy they're bringing in seems like he's got some really great ideas, and I'm really excited to see what that looks like with him doing that. But we're going to take a quick break. We come back. We're going to talk a little bit about what you saw at fall instructs from some of these pitchers that were exciting and maybe not as excited from the hitters. Maybe we haven't gotten the special Ecker touch on them just yet. But first, this word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by betonline.ag. We're back and better than ever. A new web interface for the start of basketball season, which, you were celebrating with your Hawk shirt that we could no longer see. So this joke no longer makes any sense to anyone but me and you. But, most of my jokes don't land for anyone but me and one other person. So I feel like that's, right on the money. But BetOnline remains your number one sport for all the basketball and football action this season. Head to our new website on desktop or mobile. Sign up today. Receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. For basketball, football, baseball, postseason, not anymore. But next baseball postseason, if you're there, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. Now, you were at Fall Instructs last week on Friday, and you saw some people doing some baseball things.
They did.
Even Rangers affiliated, I assume?
Half of them.
Well, that's solid. That's decent numbers. What were some of your thoughts? Who were some of the guys that you got to see, and had you seen them before? And what were kind of your general takeaways?
So these were all lower level guys. So they're all brand new to me. So for those who aren't aware, the instructs they sent an instructional league team out to Texas for a week to play a bunch of local colleges. So they played Texas Tech first, then Dallas Baptist, Baylor, and the last game was TCU, and that was the one I saw. So it was out at Lupton Stadium in Fort Worth. Really good time. They played 12-inning game, no cost. It's a really good time Friday night. They started the game with Ricky Vanasco, who obviously is a pretty big pitching prospect just coming off of an injury. It wasn't he didn't look the greatest that night, but at the same time, it doesn't really shock me. He's a guy who, when he was drafted, was a work in progress developmentally. Mm-hmm. They quickly changed and fixed his mechanics up, and he gained a lot of velocity really quickly. But he didn't get to throw that much before he got injured, and he's just coming back from that. And he's coming back from his injury with probably 30 extra pounds of good weight that he's learned how to use. So it doesn't surprise me that his mechanics are inconsistent, especially the lower half. So he's a little bit all over the place. Once he did find his mechanics towards the end of the outing, the fastball and curveball looked pretty good. It was a 93 to 96 mile an hour fastball, topped out at 97. Curve was in the mid eights. It's a power curveball. A couple of them were real sharp, so it flashed plus. He's a big kid. I mean, I think there's plenty to dream on there. I don't want to take too much from 2 innings of an instructional league game as he's coming back from injury. But I see why people are excited about him. I also see why there could be issues and why it might take a little while for him to get it together. So he started. TK Roby was the second arm for the Rangers.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
I liked him a good bit. I still don't really like the arm path very much, but he pounded the zone with fastball and changeup. The fastball was 93 to 95, topped out at 97, had some good life to it, got some swings and misses with it. He did break out a couple of curveballs, and one of them was pretty sharp for that one too. His last pitch was a string and strikeout on a really good curveball. The other pitcher that I really found interesting was
before you move on.
Yeah, go ahead.
What do you mean by arm path? What does that mean for someone who might not know what you're talking about? Not me. I know what you're talking about, but
of
like,
course,
I don't know, somebody.
Yeah, so he actually got injured this year, which wasn't surprising because of this arm path. So it was actually a little bit longer now than it was before, but it still wasn't great. So he just kind of floats his arm back, kind of cocks the ball where he wants it, and then brings it forward. It's kind of a real soft. It's just kind of real soft on its way back. Like there's no circle to the motion. It just kind of floats back there, and then he throws it. It's tougher. It's just tougher on your arm that way. So the first time I saw him, I kind of figured, it's probably going to be an injury in here at some point. And then like 2 starts later, he got shut down. Luckily, he didn't need to get Tommy John. He's back and he's healthy now, and he looked really good. So there's still going to be some concerns with the arm path, but man, if that dude stays healthy, he's a good arm.
That's solid. It's definitely encouraging. I really liked what I saw from him from the stats wise in a limited time. And, he was from that draft where it was just kind of felt like a real crapshoot. The Rangers seem to have nailed for the most part of these high school guys that they couldn't get evaluations on because of COVID. So definitely some encouraging stuff. Who were some of the other guys that you saw there? If there were that many, or anybody that stood out?
So the last arm that really stood out would be Emiliano Toyota. I think he's a 20-year-old kid they signed out of Mexico. He's a pure relief prospect, but he's a long leg guy, really quick arm, looked to be a good athlete. Anytime you come out of the pen and you're popping 96, 99, topping out at 100 with a high spin curveball, like you're going to turn some eyes. So he's a possible reliever prospect to look out for. The control command wasn't super there. But he's also only 20. So you give some time for that to come along. I think in rookie ball this year, he missed a lot of bats. He also walked more than you'd want. So it kind of checked out with what the numbers said. But he was a really interesting guy. If he throws strikes and has some command, he's going to miss plenty of bats.
Well, that's good. That's good to hear. I don't think I'd ever heard of him before. You said something like about him. Literally just now.
I had not heard of him before he came in the game, and then he hit 100, and I heard of him.
Yep, that'll do it. I mean, there's only so much scouting you could do with a radar gun, but like when it's flashing triple digits, like all right, like I don't want to entirely rely on this, but this is something to look at. But speaking of radar guns, when I talked with Zach yesterday, I was asking him about his arsenal because I'm like, you can't really tell. I know he's got a slider, obviously, like that's the big thing, and he's got a fastball that is a 4-seamer. He also has a curveball and a changeup, which I found it really interesting just talking to him about like how he has such a unique like delivery of going almost slider first. Is that something that we're seeing like more? And who was like, I feel like Lance McCullers is like the guy everyone thinks of, but like, is there really anybody else that's doing that I like can't like think of right now?
We're definitely seeing more of it. Didn't I want to say Adam Wainwright was curveball first this year? Maybe I'm making it up, but I want to say
He's got a nasty curveball. So, hold on, I'm gonna look this up on Baseball Savant. Wainwright was curveball first. We got 34% and then 28% sinker, which
and he had a really good year doing it that way. So I have not seen Zak Kent actually. So that interview was very interesting to me. But I'm really glad that he's comfortable being slider first because, I mean, you've got a plus slider, play off that thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was interested to hear his answer about how he's like, yeah, I use my fastball to change up. Like, well, then what's your changeup? Like a super duper changeup? It's like a double reverse changeup squared. But it's nice that he has 4 pitches and it being slider first and it being so nasty. I can't wait to see it in person. Which hopefully next year we'll get to see it in person. Because I'm assuming he starts at Double-A. I think that's what's going to happen.
So. I would think so.
But and him, it's just fascinating to me of how he's like I couldn't explain how I have such a good feel for the slider, being like off speed first and like being such a low walk guy is definitely very encouraging stuff from him.
Yeah, he. I know he turned a lot of heads this year. I was sad I never got out to see him.
Yeah, I am also sad that I never got out to see him, but I got to see him and talk to him much more than I probably would have if I saw him out there at Frisco. I mean, but there's only so much you can learn from that. But
yeah, I mean, yeah,
it's still fun.
I mean, it helps though. It certainly helps. Do you want to cover the bats real quickly from the instructs? There's not going to be much.
Yeah, go ahead. Who is it? Who is it that was there, and who is it that you are disappointed in? Not mad, you're disappointed in them.
Oh, I don't know that I'd say I'm disappointed in anyone particularly. I can say as a whole I was a little underwhelmed. The ones who I thought were interesting to some extent. I mean, I thought Daniel Cueva, who was a J2 guy, I don't know, 2019, I think, was a little interesting. He's a young shortstop. Looked like he had a little bit of power in the swing. It was a quick bat. Jason Morabel saw a 95 up in the zone and turned on it, parked it. He was another J2 guy a couple years ago. Those were the 2 big ones, I think, in 2019. So those 2 were interesting. Ian Moeller, the 4th-round pick this year, is a really good defensive catcher. I don't know about the bat so much. Jojo Blackman, this year's 11th rounder, is super fast. I don't know about anything else. Cam Cauley, Marcus Smith, Keith Moss were all interesting. Aaron Zavala was there. He didn't look great.
So I don't know if you heard about what happened with him.
I didn't. I wasn't able to read the article.
Okay, so basically there was a health scare. That's why he got half the money. There was a growth on like the base of his spine, and they thought that it was gonna he would never play again. Like that he'd even start having trouble walking soon.
Okay.
And then they got a whole bunch of other opinions from specialists, and turns out it was benign. Like they knew that, but that was like the only good news at first. And then they got some more specialist opinions, and looks like they're just going to monitor the growth of the thing, to make sure it doesn't grow. But there's not any. They don't think it's going to get bigger. They're hoping not, and it's not going to, hurt anything. Him playing baseball. So he's like, I'm just happy to be, playing again and appreciating it. Not that he ever took it for granted, but you have something like that, and they only had 3 days to solve the thing, so they could either offer him 40% of the bonus, or lose the pick and get a compensation pick if he didn't sign, or get nothing. So definitely, I can't believe they handled it as well as they did. I mean, I would be just freaking out if I was on either side of that. I have no idea how to handle this. That would be a whole lot to put on anybody. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Him just being there is great. Also interesting that you brought up Ian Muller. Evan actually wrote a story about him and the ridiculous lack of black catchers for the last 20 years. I think 2005 was the last time any black catcher caught more than 100 games or something like that. And it's been literally that long. And I'm like, that can't be right. But it is.
How long did you say it's been?
I think it's been like at least 15 years.
15 years, damn.
And even before that, like it was just like one guy, and there was like one guy in like the 90s. So it was like another like 10 years before that, I think.
Wow. Okay.
So it's been a long time, and so
well, he's smooth back there. He can really catch it. And he also had kind of some catchery attitude attributes in that he, just an instructs game against the college team. He was out there fist pumping and walking over to the pitchers and having little chats with them about how to attack between innings. And I liked what I saw from him defensively. Absolutely.
But yeah, if you have a good personality and like you are, fist bumping and all that stuff, and you're a good defensive catcher, that'll give you a 10-year major league career right there.
Yeah. I mean, assuming that the auto strike zone doesn't come in, that's where it really hurts those guys. So by the time he's big league ready, his skill set may be much less valuable.
That would be a real bummer.
It would be.
But you know what's not a bummer?
What's not a bummer?
The Astros lost the World Series. They have now lost more World Series than the Rangers. They have lost 3. The Rangers have lost 2. Also, the Rangers were never swept in a World Series, which the Astros were in 2005 by the Chicago White Sox. So,
also, both teams have 0 championships.
Yeah, 0 legitimate championships. It's wild. It's wild. Actually, the Rangers do have one 10 years ago. Want to celebrate the
great Indy Chavez catch?
Yeah, the great Indy Chavez catch. Making that defensive switch was the greatest thing Ron Washington ever did. And him stepping away to spend more time with his family in 2014 and not for any other reason, that was a great personal decision. It's a bummer he hasn't been a major league manager yet. But also, I don't know if you saw the video, but they interviewed Wash right after the championship, and he talked about the heart and soul of that team, and it's all about ass and elbows, which is an all-time great Wash quote. Like, I don't know why he said ass and elbows, other than he's Ron Washington, and that's just who he is. So congrats to the Atlanta Ass and Elbows. They got to rename their team to that right now.
They do, and the tomahawk chop, they need to be more creative here. I know they just do it so often.
I know it's literally it's like Boomer Sooner. With OU, except a little more racially insensitive than Boomer Sooner.
Boomer Sooner's just dumb. Right.
It's just dumb and annoying and played all the time, but not problematic unless I don't know, your father was a wagon cart, in which case it's very insensitive and they should change it immediately. They should just change it because it just fills me with rage, because usually it's happening when Texas Tech is down by like 50 points. I'm like, can you just stop it already? Can you just stop it? All right.
They will never stop.
You've made your point. We've lost. But Jorge Solaire, I've forgotten how many years. I think Ken Rosenthal had the tweet of how long it had been since a Cuban player had won a World Series MVP. But Jorge Solaire had, he came up big when it mattered most. And in this game, he had a 3-run home run that was the biggest one of the game. Gave him a 3-0 lead. And unlike Sunday's game, when they hit a big home run with scoring multiple runs, 3 or more, in fact, like they did on Sunday, they added some more, which I thought was smart,
I like some
it didn't end up mattering because the Houston Astros were shut out. And Max Fried was fantastic. Like, I thought he really got way too much flack, but he's able to go 5 innings in his last start, even though he gave up a bunch of runs. They just singled him to death in that last start. Like, he didn't really walk anybody. He still went 5 innings, which I think maybe 4 pitchers total went at least 5 innings. And I don't think there was 4. I think it was just like 4 games where the starter went 4 innings or more, or like 5 innings or more. I think it was just 3. I think it was Max Fried and whoever he was up against in that game. And then actually, no, I think it was 4 because Ian Anderson did it. And then Max Fried went 6 shutout innings in the clincher. And Will Smith came on for the win. Your Aggie boy, AJ Minter, got his World Series, got to hold the World Series trophy with a big old cowboy hat. And, he gets to live down one bad outing that he had on Sunday, which I felt was good, and it would mar what he'd been doing so well for the entire postseason. That's the bad thing about being a reliever. Like, you have one bad outing, like your ERA, especially for a postseason, even for the regular season, like 2 bad outings can like completely screw your ERA. Like it did with Jesse Chavez when he was a starter, and then like he went to the pen and was like just nails. And he also gets a ring, and so does Luke Jackson, and so does Ron
Chris
Washington
Martin.
now, Chris Martin, Drew
Jeff
Smiley, Jeff Smathis. Not Smathis, Mathis. I was going to say Jeff Stinkin' Mathis, but then I stopped, and it was just Jeff Smathis. So Jeff Smathis gets one, too. And Freddie Freeman gets a ring.
Do you remember who Luke Jackson was traded for?
I remember looking it up recently and getting really mad. But who was it? I know it was like a no. Even at the time, we're like, just take this guy. He can't do baseball.
It was for Tyrell Jenkins and Brady Feigl.
Oh, at least it was, no, it was bad. It was bad at the time. But hey, we got Colby Allard for Chris Martin. That still felt weird at the time. Like I don't know how even that was. I mean, they've gotten probably more value out of Chris Martin than the Rangers have out of Colby Allard. But like, I don't know. He's been decent, but I don't know, he's one of those guys. I feel like I have him pinned, which I don't like that. I feel like I have him pinned at, age, 22 that he is, even though he's been in the big leagues for like 18 years, it feels like. But, so many former Rangers, Charlie Culberson's, younger, slightly more talented, body double in Dansby Swanson. Also, I get really mad at these freaking people who are like, oh, Dansby Swanson sucks. Like, oh, I can't believe it. It's kind of wild to me that he hit a 760 OPS, but he hit 27 home runs as a shortstop playing pretty solid defense and played 160 games. You know how much I would give for that? Just give me that exact thing.
Yeah, I mean, he may not have lived up to the first pick expectations, but he's a good player.
Yeah, he's a really solid. How did he have this low? Okay, he hit 240, and he walked like a decent chunk. Like his on base is about 63 points higher than his batting average. He slugged nearly 450. How do you only have an open? The math doesn't add up in my mind, even though it clearly does on paper. Like he had 50 walks. He just hit 248 for the year. But he had 27 home runs. I don't know. Braves fans, stop complaining. It can be much, much worse. Also, you don't get to complain for like a decade after you win a championship. Like you get 0 complaints for like a decade after. Then you can be like, oh, we haven't done it. Even if you lose 100 games every year afterwards, you still get like a decade of that. And then you're like, all right, now I'll listen to your complaints. Maybe if it's 5 years of 100 losses straight, then I'll start to listen. But I won't really start to feel bad until it's 10 years. But man, 100 loss season is rough, and that would have been just so miserable if the Astros won it when the Rangers lost 100 games like that. I appreciate the baseball gods for like delivering us like that little bit of joy. Like we lost Joey Gallo this year, not like he didn't die. Like, he had to go be a Yankee, which is almost worse. Almost worse. I mean, not for him, obviously, but like I don't know. They're being pretty mean to him out there, but he's still, being young and rich and famous in New York City feels like a good place to do it. But like we also lost a bunch of games and they were kind of miserable to watch. And even the young guys didn't take as much of a step as I wanted them to, except for Dane Dunning and Taylor Hearn and a couple of you key others. You were the great anomalies, but the rest of you, woof. But man, that was a fun World Series. And like, I wish I didn't have so much like anxiety with it because the Astros ran it. If it was just like Boston, I'd be like, oh, look, this is a great World Series too. Really good teams. And Boston really went for it. And like they traded for 4 outfielders at the deadline. And all 4 of them were freaking amazing in the postseason in their own right, which is just really fun and a big, hopefully I feel like, since sports leagues are such copycat leagues, maybe that'll make all teams be like, what if we just like freaking go all in?
Tried to win?
Yeah. maybe it'll encourage more of the ones in the middle of like, oh, I am a selfish, greedy owner, and I don't like spending money and trading my cheap prospects. But like, if I win a championship, then I get lots of money, and they buy my championship merchandise, and I get that money, and they throw money at me on a championship parade, or I don't know, I get to bathe in $100 bills, whatever owners do when they win a world championship. But I don't know. Hopefully that'll make things better for the Rangers when they're most definitely sellers again next year. We sit through this all over again, and it's kind of fitting that Carlos Correa's last game with the Astros is a World Series loss. Kind of makes my heart just a little bit happy, just a little bit. But man, I'm sad now because that means baseball season's officially over, and we're headed straight for a lockout in like a month, which I'm not looking forward to. But hey, I mean, they can't lock us out. We're not on strike yet. Maybe we will be. I don't know. I don't think so. Are you willing to strike? I'm not quite there yet.
I'll strike if it gets minor leaguers paid. I don't think that our strike is going to be impactful though.
No, I'm not sure that it will, but we'll try our darndest, and I feel like we'll threaten to not go on strike, to keep being doing this podcast like that.
We will do the show until minor leaguers get paid.
We will keep making podcasts until our demands are met, and so which means we'll probably keep making podcasts for a long time. But at least they're gonna house them one step closer, and Zak Kent's gonna be in Frisco next year, hopefully, if we have a season, if there's baseball, and if not, KBO, get ready, because I'm going to screw up my sleep schedule and get really into you again. I'd rather not, but, desperate times call for desperate measures. We're not there yet. We still have a whole month before we have to deal with lockout stuff and December madness and fun. Hopefully going to be a whole lot more guests. I'm working on a guest for next week. Not quite as famous or not as good at pitching, but definitely around Rangers baseball for next week. But we'll see what we get into there. Hopefully some more interesting stories come out of instructs, and the Rangers still have to hire a hitting coach. They already fired one, but they have to hire one. So we'll see where that goes. Definitely a lot of fun stuff to do. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. We got to name a random Ranger to end out this podcast. Otherwise, the people will riot. So, Grant, I know you had one last week, and I am already stalling, and because I forgot who I had prepared for this week. And maybe I'll find it in the time you're telling me about your random Ranger.
I'm going with Josh Roop. Pitched for the Rangers in 05, 06, 08, and 09. Totaled 132 and 2/3 innings. Had a 4.95 ERA. In those 132 innings, he struck out 75 and walked 64. Hit 13. So his walks plus hit by pitches were more than his strikeouts. But he pitched. He was there, and he was a Ranger.
He showed up. He made an impact. Man. Oh my gosh. I'm trying to. Was Ryan Garco was mine last week? I feel like.
I know we mentioned him. I don't remember if he was your guy or not.
I think he was. Oh no, I remember who I was going to do. This is former Ranger great Clay Ripata.
Yes.
I felt really good about that.
Playoff teams.
On one playoff team, exactly.
On a playoff team.
In 2010, he pitched for the Rangers. He pitched for in 7 years. He pitched for 5 different teams. Detroit, Texas, Cleveland, Chicago Cubs, New York Yankees, Baltimore. However many that is. I'm not good at math.
6.
That is 6. Okay. Pitched in 13 games, 9 innings. So the rare under 1 inning average for him. Finished off 2 games, had a exactly 4 ERA. Walked 7 in those 9 innings. Struck out 5. Somehow an ERA plus of 116. Don't know how that happened.
He did get a big out in the playoffs, I think, against the Yankees.
Did he now? His future team, he didn't know in 2 years he'd end up being there. But you're right. He had a 0 ERA in 3 playoff games. Wait, how? No. No, this doesn't make sense. Okay, he faced one batter each time. Yep.
Yeah, he was a loogie.
Okay. 3 games, 3 batters faced. 1 out, 1 hit, 1 walk, 1 strikeout. Wow. Walks per 9 innings, 27 in the playoffs. Strikeouts per 9 innings, 27. Wow. What a guy. His 1 out must have been a big one. It was against the Yankees. You were right. He also pitched in the postseason for the Yankees twice.
Yeah.
2 series. 1 game in the ALDS against Baltimore and 4 games against Detroit, where he got 4 outs because that's who he is. Looks like he faced multiple batters there, though. But yeah, I feel really good about that Random Ranger. Yeah.
That was a good pull.
I don't know why, but that name always stuck out to me. And it's like a pretty solid name. Clay Ripata. Like, solid. Anyway, I feel good about that Random Ranger. I feel good about yours, even though I completely forgot who it was because I was too busy searching for mine to be fully paying attention. Because, I am many things, and one of them is definitely prepared. I was prepared once this week. I was very prepared, and I feel like I did a very good job. So, maybe a little slacking, for the rest of the week, but it's here. This is Grant's time to shine. Not with his face this week, but I don't know, maybe next time we'll get your face figured out. I still don't have my own face figured out, so maybe asking to figure out yours is a bit much, a bit of a tall order. But that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Rangers. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. Thank you, Grant, for providing your insight, your random rangerness, and your appreciation for baseball. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball off season.